All right, back to Candace to introduce our speaker for the day.
Hi, everybody. It's a beautiful day today and no better day to introduce welcoming Danyell Davis, a distinguished linguist and cultural expert known for her role in Florida's trade and economic development mission to Japan, Taiwan, and Korea. Fluent in Japanese and an authority on East Asian customs, brings invaluable insights on cross-cultural communication and business practices. Her dynamic talks offer essential guidance for excelling in international business. Welcome.
First, I just want to start by saying congratulations to the Orlando Rotary Club for over 100 years of exemplary service. I think you guys deserve a hand clap for that. Awesome. I noticed you have over 1 million active members and 35,000 clubs worldwide. That is so impressive. Thank you so much for asking me to be here today. And I'm really, really excited about what I have to share with you. Actually, a veteran, a war veteran, a Purple Heart recipient is the one that introduced me to Japan. He served this country for 22 and a half years. That's his daughter right there. She lived in Japan back in the 1950s for about 3 years with my grandfather, my grandmother, and my aunt. And they introduced me to Japan and the relationship that the US and Japan should have. And that's a critical relationship, and it's an allied partnership. And we want to keep that going. And so that's one of the reasons why I majored in East Asian languages and literature with a concentration in the Japanese language. I had no idea what I wanted to major in. I wanted to be an active soldier, a veteran as well. But at the age of 12, I had major spinal surgery. And so, of course, although I passed the ASVAB, they said, I'm so sorry, I can't help you. And so that's when I applied for the University of Central Florida. They have great recruiters there. They actually came out to Jones High School and they asked me, do you want to go to college? And of course I said yes. So coming from Grand Avenue Elementary, which is about 2 miles from this church, not too far, right in between Holden, right in between Westmoreland and Paramore. How do you have the mindset to think about the relationship between Japan and the US? And you're right in the middle of Holden Heights. I had a grandfather that was from Osceola, Arkansas. Some would consider him a countryman. And so I went to him and I said, hey, I don't know what I'm doing here. So I always go to the wise, the sagacious people. And so that's why I'm happy I'm here today, because I can see this room is filled with wisdom. And so I'm just going to share with you some things that I've learned over the years. And it's called common sense in Japan, but is there really common sense in Japan? I mean, you really need to know the language and the culture to really have common sense in Japan, right? So we're going to talk about that a little bit. Anybody if you've been to Japan, raise your hand. Beautiful. How many people have done successful deals in Japan? Okay. How many people have done unsuccessful deals in Japan? All right, we'll talk about that. I forgot to mention the First United Methodist Church. They've been here for 140 years, being that spiritual presence that we need right here in downtown Orlando. So I want to thank them for actually hosting us today. And so, let's just get right into it, because this is the church that seeks, loves, and serves. And that's what we want to do. We want to be servant leaders. How can we do that here locally? And how can we do that abroad? Okay. So what's interesting, let me go to the next slide here. What's interesting is, how did I go from Holden Heights to sitting next to the Yakuza the Japanese mafia in Japan. And like, how do you navigate that? How do you get out of that situation, right? How do you end up in customs? It almost felt like a locked up abroad situation, but I was actually in customs in Japan. And how do you get it out of that? How do you navigate out of that situation? And so I'm going to go through a little bit of, customs and how you work in Japan, and also how you respect the culture. So as you can see, I've been in this community since the 1970s. So I'm a hidden resource here. I'm a resource here for you guys. You probably didn't know it, but I've just been quietly honing my skills so that I can be a blessing to someone. That was something else my grandfather shared. You're not blessed just to be blessed. You're blessed to be a blessing. And so we're kind of going to go through that and talk about how I can assist with maybe some of the things that you're dealing with. We have importers and exporters here in Orlando. We have people that need translation, document translation. I actually work with attorneys that have Japanese clients. And this one attorney in particular, he is actually married to a Japanese lady. And he was like, Danyell, my wife doesn't have time to teach me the language. And not only that, I've tried to introduce my clients to my wife, my Japanese clients, and have her do the business for me. They're like, no, I want to talk to the attorney. You're nodding your head, I see, right? And so what he did, he said, you know what? I'm going to take your language course. I'm going to take your training because there's something that I'm not doing right. And just to give you a tip, I'm actually going a little ahead of my presentation, but just to give you a little tip, he stood in front of a group of Japanese and he was ready to give his presentation. And he said, Watashi no namae wa Anthony Davis-san desu. And so automatically they were like, he just introduced himself. He just said what his name was. And just because there was one error in that sentence, it's a major error. Does anybody happen to know? I see somebody shaking their head, but I said one word in there that actually really turned the whole presentation around. He called himself Mr. Okay, Mr. His last name actually, Mr. Bernal. And so that's one of the things you don't want to do. That's a lack of humility. And so those are some of the things that we teach in our training and our cultural programs, right? So, I could pretend as if I'm smart, but that would not pass the Rotary's 4-way test, now would it? Right? In all honesty, I had to pray to master this language. I went to my father and said, God, you know all languages. I just need help with this one. And he worked through my hands and through my speech. And I could easily go up and say, Osaka no Kansai Gaidai Daigaku de benkyou shimashita n desu kedo, minasan wakarimasu ka? But that would be rude, actually. You can speak the language fluently, but if you don't know when to pause, if you don't know how to bow, if you don't know how to present your meishi, your business cards, then the Japanese feel like you just came over there to get something, but you weren't willing to invest anything. And so there are quite a few people. There are college students that I work with, UCF college students in particular. They take Japanese language, and that's where I actually started. They actually teach Japanese, let's see how I would say it, like in the English alphabet, in the Romanized alphabet. So I bet someone probably knows one word in Japanese. Who knows, maybe thank you or good. Yes, sir. Can you say it in the back? Arigato. So desu ne. Arigato gozaimasu. Perfect. Right? And so they teach us how to write it like this. Arigatou. That was back in the 90s. They're not doing that anymore, right? And so when I transferred to University of Florida, everything was in hiragana, katakana, and kanji. the Chinese characters. And so I had to learn all three ways of reading and writing because they put it all into one sentence, right? I wanted to do business in Japan. I wanted to go to college in Japan. I wanted to understand more ways of doing business, not just the US way, but an international way. And so that's why I went on to get my master's in international business to round out the degree. Now, I started my Japanese language language journey over 30 years ago, and I've been coaching business leaders for about the last 10 years, college students as well. I am an Orange County public school educator, so I'm really excited about that. All the kids, I'm sure you probably, if you have children or grandchildren, have you heard the word, if you've heard the word anime or manga, raise your hand. Yes, look, wow, right? And so when I come in the classroom, I'm actually a part-time educator, so I go around to different schools. And instantly when I say anime and manga, I have their attention. And so that's where most of our students come from, the ones that love, you know, Japanese anime, which is Japanese cartoons, which are adult cartoons, and Japanese manga. Okay. JapaneseTutor.biz, we're registered by the state of Florida. We're licensed with the city and the county. We actually have recently partnered with First Orlando. Thank you for being here today. We are actually planning a 1-week missions trip to Japan, and we're planning to do that yearly. And so we're really, really excited to give back in that way. You know, we're going to be helping out single mothers. We're going to be putting together packages. We're going to be actually doing some street evangelism. And so we're really, really excited about that. But today you're going to learn how to have a closer relationship with the Japanese. Some of you may have Japanese family. Anybody have anyone in their family that may be Japanese, an in-law? Okay. Or the business deals. Some of you have said you've done business deals in Japan. Some have been successful, some have not been successful. So let's talk about that a little bit. In 1997, who all knows Walken Lawton? I'm sure a lot of you, yeah, we miss him. He was an awesome governor, awesome governor. I was asked to be on the advanced team for Japan, Taiwan, and Korea. And so we're walking the streets of Japan right here in this photo. And some of you may know Dick Nunes. Who knows Dick Nunes, the chairman of yeah, you guys know Dick. We miss him as well. We're on the bullet train here. And our job was to actually bring back investment to the state of Florida. So Mitsubishi, for example, they wanted to expand here in Florida. And so that was part of our trip, going and talking to Japanese companies and getting them to expand to our state. But we had to do something a little unique to make that happen. Let me see if that's on the next slide. It is. So Mitsubishi, Disney, Epcot, I believe it was Disney, Epcot, and Mitsubishi. They basically said, you know, we want to do more in the community, but you do not have a school for our children to continue learning their language, Japanese language. And so with the help of Sam Tabucci and the Mid-Florida EDC, at that time I was working for Enterprise Florida. Any people familiar with Enterprise Florida? Yes, right? The state's leading economic development division. At that time, I was working for them for about 5 years, and our job was to not only bring businesses here to the state and help the business that's currently here expand, but also to create school opportunities for their children. And so that was just a fun time for me, working with the Japanese. They said, you don't look Japanese. How do you know our language, right? Well, I mean, I lived there. You may not be able to see this picture, but somehow I was the topic of conversation between the governor and the president of the United States. He was actually just saying thank you to the governor for having me be a part of this economic development mission. So let's look at Japanese a little bit. Let's look at it, right? This is what Japanese looks like, right? Hiragana and katakana. So hiragana, mostly, our nouns are written in hiragana, our subjects, our objects, all of that's written in hiragana. Katakana basically is foreign borrowed words, like our names. Our names are written in Japanese. If you want your name written in Japanese before you leave, let me know. But our names are written in Japanese. The different cities like New York, is written in Japanese. And so those are just some of the ways that the language is expressed. Now, if you want to cover a multitude of grammar errors when you're speaking to the Japanese, I don't know if you've heard the scripture, love covers a multitude of sins. Well, the appropriate bow covers a multitude of mistakes, right? So I actually train our business leaders to make sure they have a really low bow. That shows the respect for the Japanese, okay? When you go out with business leaders in Japan, let's say, for example, you have about 5 business professionals waiting for you, and you have this multi-million-dollar business deal on the table, right? And you guys are going to a luncheon first before you go through the contract negotiations. Okay? So, actually, can I get this table? If everybody can just stand up at this table real quick, I'm going to need the mic again. So we have 5 business associates from Japan right now waiting for us. We've already exchanged business cards. I've already did the appropriate bow. A multi-million-dollar business deal is on the table right now. We haven't even got to that point yet, okay? They're waiting for me in front of the Japanese restaurant in Tokyo. And so now as I walk up and we've done the exchange of the cards and we've done our bow, now we're walking to the table, right? So we're all at the table together. All of them are representing the Japanese executives. Now, who sits down first? What happens next? I've seen business leaders where they sit down when the Japanese are sitting down. They sit down first, and they have totally blown the deal. Yes, you're agreeing with me. They have blown the deal before the deal has even started, because there is an appropriate layout. Usually the president and the vice president sits towards the back of the table. And then they have their next level ranks. They actually sit closer to the front. They always protect the president and the VP, right? And so you need to know they already have this laid out. And so if you sit down, you may sit down where the president normally sits, and you've thrown off the whole trajectory of the meeting. Thank you so much. Thank you. You've thrown off everything. And so you don't want to do that, right? And so I had to learn these things as well. But I love sharing this information with everyone because we want to be more global. Our children want to go to Japan. We want to make sure that they're making the best use of their time. We have business deals that we want to do there as well. So we want to make sure we're doing the best. This is an example, again, of the Japanese bow. And also we talked about humility in speech. But you see how low this gentleman is bowing? He has his camera hanging off. He's not Japanese. He's from Asia, but he understands, of course, the Asian way. So very good job there. Also, the humility in speech is what we talked about earlier. When I said, watashi no namae wa Danyell Davis desu keredomo, Osaka no Kansai Gaidai Daigaku de benkyou shimashita n desu kedo. If I said it like that, again, it's rude. Because now I'm coming off as arrogant, like, oh, you think you know this language. But there is certain ways you have to pause in the language. And we teach that as well. Here's an example of the Japanese business card I was telling you about. When I first worked for Enterprise Florida, you'll see that my name is in Japanese at the top there, Danyell Davis. Danyell Davis. Danyell Davis. そうですね。はい、ビジネスリクルート。はい、そうですね。はい、そうですね。アジャセスタント。So, you want to study the business card when you receive it. You want to study it like a business plan. Just look at it, If all you can recognize is Tokyo, say that, oh, you live in Tokyo? Oh, yes, we live in Tokyo. That's all they want. So you're going to make sure you do that. Make sure you don't put the business card in your back pocket, in your wallet, because that's disrespectful. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You already know. I love it. And you're going to make sure you put it right here in the front. Excellent. Is Mr. Peterson? Wonderful. You want to put it right there in the front, okay? Not in the back pocket. We talked about seating arrangements a few minutes earlier, right? Just making sure that you do not sit before the Japanese sit. You make sure they say, "Hai, dozo." Dozo, which means please, please have a seat, right? Also, speaking of height, when you're in contract negotiations, Japanese say height a lot, which means everybody knows what it means, right? Anybody in here knows? You can just yell it out, right? Yes, height, height, height. And you're steady talking to them about your contract. And you're thinking they're agreeing with you. I've seen many business leaders walk away and they're like excited, I got this deal. And all it means is I heard you. That's it. I hear you. Also, some people, they have misconstrued something here. Let me explain. So once I was going to go out and play tennis with a Japanese professional. Wasn't professional in in tennis, I didn't think. And he was like, "Oh, I don't play tennis that well. I'm not that good." And so we went out and played tennis. And he played like a professional. And I was like, "Why you didn't tell me that you were professional?" And he was actually a professional tennis player. And he was like, "Oh, I was just, we don't do that here. You know, we're humble. We don't say, oh, you know how we do in America, right? I'm this, I'm that." No, they'll say, "Oh, I'm not that good." And then you feel like you've been deceived, but you haven't. It's just a humility culture, okay? Also, if you can see on the screen as well, we go through dialogues with our clients. And so we actually walk them through it. What are you going to say when you're in the airport? What are you going to say when you're actually having this business deal? You know, how do you communicate? And what you'll notice on the screen, there's actually pauses, spaces in between some of the words. That's not the case in Japanese, but that's the case in a textbook to show you when to pause. So you won't sound like arrogant like I was sounding. This is one of our curriculums here that we actually teach people how to write the Chinese language because Japanese originated from Chinese. So we have to learn those Chinese characters because they're all mixed in, right? We also show people how to write business correspondence. So I'm here if you need me, if you need help with document translation, if you need help with business correspondence, or if you want to embark into that yourself and just have a better idea of what you're doing when you're doing business in Japan, or if you have family that's doing business there. We actually teach you how to work in a global company in the Japan division. And we also teach you, how not to get locked up abroad. I have been in that situation. I have been sitting next to the mafia. I've been in all those situations. How do you get out of it? Well, we'll teach you that as well. We have a 6 months program, a 1-year program. We teach people the grammar. We teach them the hiragana, katakana, and the kanji. Body language in Japan, how to get respect as a gaijin. What does gaijin mean? I'm sure one person, there we go, foreigner, right? We teach you actually how to be a foreigner, not how to be a foreigner, but we teach you how it will feel to be a foreigner in Japan, how you will be treated in Japan, okay? And then also what I noticed, my clients say, "Well, Danyell, you teach Japanese very clear and concise, very step-by-step and very methodical. And then you explain like why certain things are done." sometimes the Japanese have told me, I don't know why we say this or why we do that. And we believe that you can actually master the language. We believe you can embrace the language. We don't think it's too difficult for you to learn, when sometimes some people think that's the case. And so we're here as a resource again for global companies, our entrepreneurs. We're also here for our attorneys. And we just want to let you know we're here local. We're just right down the street. We do our trainings in co-working groups. We also do our trainings at churches like this one. And so just always know that you can call on us if you need us, and we'll be there to assist. How am I doing on time? Great. So 2 things I want to go over really quick. One thing is called hone, and the other is called tatemae. Hone. How do you get to the hone, the heart of the Japanese? Because a lot of times they will show you their tatemae, which is their professional face, right? They're not showing you their true feelings. And that takes time. You know, I lived with a Japanese family in their home for about 1 year. They do quite a few things different than we do, right? Some good, some different. Yeah, I hear the laughter in the back, right? But it's all a learning experience, right? And so I get to show you how it is to live day to day in Japan, how to do business in Japan, how to be a college student in Japan, because I was a college student there as well. And then I was actually hired right before I graduated from Kansai Gaidai Daigaku. I was hired by a Japanese company, and they asked me, "Excuse me, do you speak English?" I'm like, "Yes, most definitely." And so we teach you the hone and the tatemae, how to get to the heart of the Japanese so that you can have a better relationship. We also do like a summer course as well. The summer course is basically for people who are going for like 1 week or just going for a few days, and you just want to know, hey, excuse me, where's the restroom? Tore wa doko desu ka? Or where's this restaurant? Or takushi onegai shimasu? Where's the taxi? Taxi, please, right? So when you want to know those basic things, if you're going for a week or two, like we did with the governor, we went for about 1 week. And it wasn't easy for some of us to catch a cab, right? You're waving the cab down. What happens if it keeps going? What are you going to do? How do you handle that situation? And so we'll go through all of that with you. But my experience in Japan, I would say 98% was a great experience. Great. And I can't say that for every country, but I can say that for Japan, 98% was an awesome experience. I was able to get contract deals. I asked for 10 things in my contract. I got 9. I'll go with that. That works. And then just the opportunities are there. They will give you the opportunity if you can show them that you can handle the position. And so that's a really, really good thing. So also, actually, that's one of my students there. He's a church planter, and he's showing me the difference between Spanish and Japanese. And actually, there are some similarities. How many people in here first language Spanish? Anybody first language Spanish? Because you have an advantage in learning Japanese, the phonetics. Yes, you know, it's very similar. And so the way you speak it actually is a little smoother, because as Americans, we'll say arigato. Ooh, not arigato. So desu ne, right? And so I'm American. I was saying arigato too, so don't feel bad. But we learn the right way. Arigato. So desu ne. We also teach people, that's one of our UCF students right there. She was like, I need some tutoring. I need some help. Can you help me out? We go through the characters with them stroke by stroke, and the stroke order matters. I tried to get away from that actually. And my teacher was like, David-san, yonde kudasai. Sore wa dame desu yo. She said, that's not right. You can't do it like that. And so there's an order, and it helps me a lot when doing translations for companies and for governors. Of course, there's a Japanese word that comes across. I don't know it, but I know how to get the right answer. Google Translate is not going to give you the right answer all the time. I can't give that to the governor, right? I have to write it out and then I can produce the right answer. Okay? So if you guys need to get in contact with me, that's my website. You have my number. valuesandintegrity@gmail.com is my email because I stand on values and integrity. And so I really appreciate the time that you guys allowed me to have. If you have any questions, please feel free at this time to ask. And again, I just want to say thank you.
You say if you're over in Japan and you make a wrong move at the table, you can kill the deal. What if they come over here? Is it the reverse? We go through our customs and you violate theirs? How do they react to that?
Very good question. So the benefit is this. You just want to make sure you study before you go to Japan, right? A lot of them study and practice before they come here, right? They understand that they're doing business in another country. And so making sure that you prepare and do your research ahead of time is vital. I do know many people, they're telling me, Danyell, I'm going to Japan in a week. I'm going in 2 weeks. They've never been before. They haven't studied the language. And it's not a really great experience. You want to get the full breadth of that experience, right? And then there's certain, I mean, as people, we do have our judgments, unfortunately. You just see a person, you don't like the way they're not following your customs or your rules, then you may, here in the US, you may say, they didn't even prepare for us. When you're not prepared, it shows. And I'm sure if somebody came to your office unprepared, you wouldn't be happy. Yes.
Danielle?
Do you have a facility for languages, or did you just find Japanese your language and stuck with it?
So are you asking me, did I have a propensity for languages? Oh, thank you for that question. So I remember when I was in Japan, and I was young, 19, 20 years old in Japan. I was pretty excited. And I thought it was a big deal at that time to be able to speak Japanese. And so what was interesting was actually I met about maybe 5 Africans while I was in Japan at that time. And they said, okay, you speak Japanese. We speak a lot of languages. You have a propensity to speak those languages, right? But this is what I do. I actually teach you how to break that language down little by little, piece by piece. We start from the letter A. We start from the vowels, and then we go right into the consonants. We don't just jump right in. And so I also have a propensity to teach. And so I'm able to break that language down. Thank you.
Judd, I'll get over to you in just a minute.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm curious now, with everything you've learned, excuse me, over the years, and your main focus is, you're hosting these classes and helping people in America. Do you still regularly use your skills and do international business, or are you just focused here on these operations?
A great question. So that's one of the reasons too why I actually approached my church about us actually going once a year and making sure we spend time in Japan at least once a week. And so that's why we're doing missions over in Japan, and we're staying in connection with people online as well, because it's really important to keep up your language skills. If you're here in the US and you're not keeping up your skills, I talk with people online quite often. We do a variety of activities to make sure that we're keeping our relationship strong, and keeping the language where it needs to be. Thank you. Yes.
In addition to what Alan, I thought that was a great question, but does it, in addition to where you put the card, the bowing, does it matter how you dress over there? And also if they come over here, does it matter how you dress when you meet with them?
Excellent. Thank
And
you so much.
I think things have gotten so casual. I think, that's a sign of respect too, I believe.
You're 100% correct. And thank you for bringing that up. Like, for example, this bright colored outfit I have on, you wouldn't wear that. Not for us. The darks, the grays, the blacks. I wouldn't wear red either to a business meeting in Japan. Dressing just like Mr. Peterson here. Perfect. Excellent. right? You want to dress nice, formal, all of that is extremely important.そうですね、そうですね。Gators, Pico. So this next.
Daniel, thank you very much for being here. Chris?
That's what Lawton Childs said to me too, Governor Lawton Childs.
A little thank you for coming today.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Very good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.